Okay, so almost everyone has joined, so I think we'll get started. Firstly, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today for a webinar about turning prospects into investors. We're so excited to have you here, and over the next 40 minutes, we'll be diving in to how innovative real estate firms are utilizing Agora's technology to really bring those investors to the finish line. But before we get started, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Julia Benishu, and I'm the product marketing manager at Agora, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. And I'm happy to say that I'm accompanied by Miles Hector. He's our product expert at Agora, and he's going to be sharing his expertise on Agora's investor onboarding tool. A few notes. So we'll be having a Q&A at the end, but throughout the presentation, if you have any questions at all, feel free to write them in the chat and we'll try and get to as many of them as we can. Last note is that we are recording this webinar, so in a few days, you should expect to receive the recording and you can watch it on demand at any time. All right, so let's get started. So we'll start by talking about some of the challenges that you guys might be facing when it comes to onboarding your investors and raising capital. And then today we'll be getting into a product demo led by Miles of Agora's investor onboarding tool. And then we'll leave some time at the end for a Q&A like I mentioned before. So if you're not already familiar, Agora is an investment management solution for real estate GPs to really handle all aspects of their operational backend while providing their investors the best-in-class experience. A little bit more about us. So we have 700 plus customers and a team of 170 amazing employees, and we're growing every day. And we're proudly backed by some of the leading VCs out there, Insight Partners, Coomer Capital, and Aleph. Here you can see some of our customers, some of which you might be familiar with. Okay, so what does Agora do for GPs? Essentially, we provide GPs a solution to handle their entire investment management lifecycle, starting from raising capital to providing their investors the best-in-class experience, and then allowing for them to manage all the back end from reporting to sending out distributions and managing their cap tables. And in addition to that, we offer accounting services from bookkeeping to tax services, as well as payment solutions. And something I think that everyone here can agree on is that fundraising is one of the hardest parts of your business. But what are the main challenges? In order to understand that, we need to look at what the fundraising lifecycle is. So everyone here knows that it starts off by you and your lawyers preparing the offering documents and then getting the word out about your deals, collecting some soft commitments, engaging interest from investors, and then having some more conversations. And then the last part is the hardest part, which is collecting the signatures. But why is it the hardest part? A few reasons. Number one is that these agreements are long and complicated for your investors to understand. You can imagine that this creates a lot of friction, confusion, and ultimately potential for investors to drop out. Second is that most investors make mistakes. So let's say in a perfect world, all of your investors sign and fill out the entire agreement and actually send it back to you, which we know isn't always the case. Most likely, almost all of them will have made at least one mistake, which creates a lot of back and forth between your team and the investor themselves. And lastly, if you're fundraising from family offices or institutional investors, we know that there are a lot of players involved here, which requires many different people to review and sign the document, which makes this entire back and forth an entire project itself. Actually, one of our customers said that 99% of their investors make mistakes on the signature agreement, which you can only imagine how much work that creates for your investor relations team, as well as your investors. So what does this mean for you? This means that your investors aren't having the best onboarding experience, leading to frustration and ultimately less capital raised. So now that we've touched upon some of the challenges that you guys might be facing when it comes to onboarding your investors and raising capital, it's the perfect time to pass the mic to Miles. He's our product expert, and he's going to be showing you how Agora's investor onboarding tool is helping GPs provide their investors the most seamless onboarding experience. So take it away, Miles.
Thank you so much, Julia, and thank you all so much again for attending this session. Looking forward to speaking with you and showing you the Agora platform. So by virtual show of hands, I'm sure that if I ask the question, how many people have that one investor that when you get that email from them in your inbox, your heart starts to pound and you get some anxiety, right? I'm sure everyone's raising their virtual hands, right? And that's because that's how it is. For some background on myself, I used to be a GP before joining Agora, and we were kind of struggling with the same thing. Like, how do we have a way to seamlessly and efficiently send these documents to our investors in a way that's transparent for us to understand where they are in the process, easy for them to fill out accurately and with completely and accurately, and then furthermore, how do we get the deal closed down to, however long it takes today, down to a time that's ideally like days versus weeks, and how do we do that with as little stress as possible? So the way that we did that was we built a smart questionnaire. What we're able to do here is digitize the questions that are in your current documents into the digital form in Agora. What this means is it allows investors to select the answers that they need to select from and have them answer only the questions that are relevant for them. That allows them to, again, quickly, easily, and simply answer the questions versus going through an entire paper questionnaire, which, as we all know, can lead to confusion and disjointed experiences. The motivation behind the feature is pretty simple again, and it has to do with creating a personalized investing experience, making sure that your investors feel catered to and tailored to as they, are investing money with you to improve the relationship that you have with them, to make them want to come back again and do it in the future. That also reduces friction between you and your investors. So no more calling investors or having them call you, asking questions, or sometimes having them send back blank documents without anything filled out for you to do that on your own. All that is reduced and has the level of transparency that you would expect from a software. And then last but not least, we want to increase your conversion and reduce the time from sending out your documents to closing the deal. And so with that, what I'll do is go ahead, share my screen, and I'll walk you through the fundraising and the questionnaire in Agora, and we can go from there. Great. Can everyone see my screen okay? Yep, perfect. So I'm going to be an investor, Sarah Bernstein. As we can see here, when Sarah logs into her portal, this is what she sees. High-level overview of her investments, as well as a summary of her live offerings on the right that she has access to. So you can go through, toggle through the offerings that are available, and when she's ready, she can click Learn More to go to the data room, which is going to be how we'll market the deal. So as you can see here, at the top, we have a summary of the deal, closing date, minimum amount for investment, and then the raise targets. You can go through, take a look at all the photos that we have of the assets that are in the fund, respectively. We can have salient and customizable performance metrics that are on the fund level to show exactly what the returns will be on an estimated basis, as well as details about the offering. Kind of what is the deal about? What are the terms and conditions? How does the managers get paid? What is the investment strategy? And then what is the competitive advantage in this particular case? From here, we can upload our deal documents. So any of our decks, our marketing materials, fund structure analysis, legal documents, and fund financials to give the investors the due diligence information that they need in order to make a sound investment decision. And then last but not least, through our integration with Google Maps, you can drag the Pegman, as he's called, and get a sense of the physical asset location of where the asset is located. Gives the investors a nice view of where they're putting their money, and again, kind of adds a nice touch that's not available in every other software. So from here, once the investor has reviewed this information and they're excited to move forward with an investment, they'll begin that process by clicking Invest Now here at the top right. So what Sarah will do is she has 3 legal entities through which she can invest. In this case, we'll choose her individual. As you'll note here, every single option that we have in terms of information is going to pre-fill based on what's already on the software. Meaning, in this case, her ACH and her check instructions that are already used for previous investment, she can use to select from to move forward with this investment. Alternatively, she can create a new set of payment instructions to receive distributions in the form of a PLAD, verified bank account, or manually via wire, ACH, or check. Here we'll input our investment amount of $100,000. She can attach additional contacts to the subscription if she so chooses to do. Upload any additional documents that she'd like, such as driver's license or a passport photo. Here, we'll go ahead and acknowledge that we've received and understand the information that was provided. And then last but not least, what we're going to do is sign the document digitally using the smart questionnaire. We'll confirm the accuracy of this profile information. And then from here, what she'll do is just click Start, where she gets brought to the smart questionnaire. So what we're looking at here are questions that are in your legal documents that are subsequently built out in digital form. So for example, for the accredited investor questionnaire, she's going to go ahead, select what makes her accredited, which is her net worth. For qualified purchaser, she'll say investments. Qualified questionnaire, she'll say her net worth. She is not investing through an ESR plan. Source of her wealth is savings. And then she'll select what type of shares she wants to purchase as part of this subscription. Again, these are all questions that are totally customizable and it will be built exactly to align with those that are in your documents. Once she's answered her questions, all she has to do is click sign now. And Agora is going to prepare the form for her to sign with the answers to the questions overlaid directly onto the document versus as an appendix or in some other form that they're accustomed to. Now, as we're waiting through this, you can think about how the process would go ordinarily, sending them an email, faxing this to them, having them go through it manually. Here we can see that the information is already pre-populated. So for example, if I want to scroll down through the document and get a sense of what's going on here, for the subscriber data, I can see that all the information is now overlaid directly into the document as it needs to be. And then furthermore, the answers to her questions that we were going through in the smart questionnaire now overlay into the document. For example, we can see her net worth answer here, her investments answer, net worth, so on and so forth. Once she's reviewed all of her answers, the next step is simply to just sign the document. She'll put her signature. And then once we click continue and agree, she's now signed her document and can go ahead and fund the investment directly from here using the wire instructions provided herein.
Great. Thank you so much, Miles. That was awesome. We actually do have a few questions from the audience. So I'll ask the first one. So Zach asked, what if an investor makes a mistake?
Great question. So that's actually a perfect question. And we've built our product to address that exact use case, which as we all know is very common in many cases. So to illustrate this point, what I'm going to do is pivot from the investor facing portal, which is where we are now, to the ACP, as it's called in Agora, which is going to be where you as the GP will log in, live, work, and play, build your offerings, and manage your prospect pipeline. Before we go directly to that question, though, I'd like to just highlight a few items on this page that are kind of exemplary and stand out here. First, we have like a snapshot view of the pipeline from prospecting to soft committed and raise, how much of the total that we've raised for each bucket. And then if we go a little bit lower here, we can see that I have 18 prospects. And here I can automatically track the statuses of where each of the prospects is respectively in this stage of investment. When we're completing a revision request, what we have the ability to do is go ahead and take a look at the countersigned documents, i.e. those that investor has signed and we need to countersign. So if I go ahead and click into this, I can go ahead and open up the document. And let's say that, for example, I need to request a revision for this particular question because I know that the answer should be something other than what it is. What I'll do is request revision, add a comment to the investor to say, please review and change the answer. And once I save this and reset the signature, what this will do is save all of the existing information that the investor has already filled out. It'll only require them to be directed right to this screen to change their answer just to this one question, after which point So one common question that we get often is, can we send like if an investor makes a mistake, like how are we able to set a subscription revision request to your investors, and how can we fix it on their behalf? And it's a great question. So what we can do, hmm,
Actually, really good questions here. So one is, so Daniel wrote, I usually fill out everything on my investor's behalf because I don't want them to put so much effort in. How can you accommodate?
great question. So what we can do here is, if we go back to the initial screen here, we can see those that haven't started yet in the workspace. Let's say that, for example, we want to fill out this my own subscription on my own behalf. What I'll do is open up this, and then here I can simply select the information that I need to select from in terms of who should be signing the agreements, what payment method I want to have on file. Since I already know this to be the case, I can enter in the subscription amount on behalf of my investor as well. And then from here, all I have to do is open up the document, and I can now pre-fill the questions and answers that I need to. So for example, I can go ahead and pre-fill this answer on behalf of the investor. And once I go through and pre-fill this information, I can go ahead and from there send it for signature directly to the investor at this point.
That's awesome. Great. So actually, I remember from when I was working with our customers, a lot of the times everyone was always asking for this feature. So I do know that this is one of our the best features that we've created, and a lot of our customers are super happy with it. So thanks for showing us that.
Of course.
We do have another question. Samantha wrote, my investors' answers never change. Is there a way for the answers to save so that we don't need to re-input them the same information?
It's such a great question and such a timely one as well. Yes. So with Agora has recently released a functionality whereby any information or any answer to any question that an investor has from a previous subscription agreement will subsequently save onto the CRM, and it will pre-fill into the document if they use the same subscribing profile. Meaning, if Miles Hector LLC has answered questions in the form of yes, no, and all the answers that are shown here, these answers will subsequently not only be saved on the CRM, so I could filter for them in my day-to-day, i.e., who has invested as a Class A investor, and I could sort through that list of people. But I can also then expect that these questions will fill in automatically for the investor as they move forward, so that the only stuff that they have to do when they're doing this process is just sign the document, and that's about as smooth as it can get.
Great. Thanks so much, Miles. We have another question from David. We actually have a bunch coming in. He said, I have some more traditional investors that prefer paper-based signing. Can Agora support that?
110%. So of course, as we all know, there will always be the investor or two who wants to remain doing things in a bit antiquated way. We understand that and can support it entirely. So let's say that in that example, Max Urban is one of my investors who calls me and sends a subscription to me right back as I send it to them in blank form with nothing filled out, right? We all know who that goes. So what you can do here is under the actions dropdown for the prospect, you can complete the process manually. You'll choose the profile that's on file or add it if they don't have it. You can input their commitment amount here. And then you have the ability on this screen to upload the signed and original documents from the investor and then complete the process. And as you can see here, they're now in the completed pile. And from there, we can move on and fund the deal and get them going.
Great. And we also have another question from Karen. She asked, can you do accreditation checks?
Great question. So as of recently, we have an integration with Parallel Markets that will allow you to do investor accreditation, KYC, and AML directly in app through the subscriptions workflow. As we all know, oftentimes these KYC checks or these other sort of third-party vendor applications will oftentimes cause investors to have to be redirected to another site that's offline. And of course, can cause some disjointed experiences as they're going through the subscriptions process. If you using the Parallel Markets integration, investors will be able to complete that entire workflow in app. And then you'll be able to see, of course, the status of where they are in the process, and of course, the result of the process once that's been done. And we'll monitor those on an ongoing basis for you. And that will be done directly, seamlessly, right through the Agora platform.
Great. Okay, so those are so far all the questions that we've gotten. So feel free to take another minute and just send us any questions that you guys might have, and we'll try and get to all of them. So I'll give you guys a minute. All right, we already got one question. Someone wrote, I want my investors to fund the capital as soon as possible. Do you guys support capital contributions? Mal, unmute yourself.
Thank you so much for that. Didn't want that to go on for too long. Yes, so the answer is we do. What we have the ability to do is for your investors to auto contribute their funds by ACH. So as soon as they're done filling out the subscription agreement, right where their funding instructions are on that screen that we went through in a moment ago, you'll see a button which says contribute funds. So using, again, the Plaid bank integration that we have, they can verify their bank account with Plaid and then send you their money directly from that screen via ACH if they choose to do so. Of course, if you still want to send wires, you can make that as an option as well and send the capital call and go through that process. But we also want to give you the flexibility to have your investors just contribute the money directly from their bank account in app, and we expect that to be a success there as we move forward.
Great. Another question is, can GPs track and manage investor progress in real time?
110%. So if we take a look at the again the back end of the portal from like my side as a GP, here I can see, of course, in the different stages that we were working on, generally speaking, who has not yet started, who has started, who's waiting counter signature, who's been completed and waitlisted respectively. But in addition to that, we have a more granular view as well under the managed columns, meaning what I can do is include a subscription step which says in the stage like who started and then where they are in the process specifically, i.e., have they selected their profile? If so, which one? And then where they are in the process, just on a general basis, in terms of subscription steps. So investing profile, they've signed their documents, so on and so forth. Furthermore, I could even do one better and go into the individual prospect and actually like visually see where they are. So it looks like this investor, for example, has selected her profile, inputted her payment instructions, and has her amount, but she's not moved on since then. And so what I can do is either send her an email saying, hey, Danielle, looks like you're maybe stuck on step 2 or 3 of this process. Is there anything I can do for you? At which point she can do it herself, or I can go in on her behalf and just initiate the process by going in and answering the questions and kind of sending it to her directly this way.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Miles. Those are all the questions that we've had come in today. So I really appreciate it. Yeah, you can stop sharing your screen. So just a quick final notes before we'll go. You'll be receiving the recording to the webinar in just a few days. So just keep an eye out in your inbox. And let me just share my screen. All right. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more about Agora, feel free to scan the QR code on the screen and book a demo with one of our experts, and they'll be able to walk you through all the different aspects of our platform. And really, you'll be able to see the value that it can bring to any person on your team, whether that's management or anyone on the finance team or investor relations. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we're excited to hopefully see you join our next webinar. Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
Next.